Hey everybody, welcome to Keeping It Real. I'm Shane O'Neill and we are bringing you real talk on marketing and the jewelry industry. This is our first podcast for Fruchtman Marketing, so we're super excited to be bringing that to you today, as well as a lot of different content throughout the course of 2021, so stay tuned. For those of you who are subscribed to our T3 newsletter, you'll see a lot of that content come through there as well. So this is our first episode, and bringing to start off 2021, thought it was important to talk about a topic that doesn't get a lot of buzz, and that is really what I consider the new jewelry salesperson. So let me start off by explaining what I mean by that. In the past 10 years or so, we've really talked a lot about digital marketing, and we've talked about basically how that's disrupted traditional advertising. Not that traditional advertising isn't relevant anymore, it certainly is, but obviously there's a larger percentage of proportions of jewelers' budgets going to digital marketing. It's just a matter of where the eyeballs are. And so that's been a fundamental shift in marketing that we've been dealing with since 2007, 2008. And it's the topic of conversation, a lot of the shows, webinars, and so on and so forth, articles. But what's not really talked about, I think, is really two parts of that digital marketing sphere. So I think the first part is digital marketing in terms of execution, right? So there's digital marketing execution where you really need experts who know how to use the platforms, right? So whether it's Facebook advertising, paid search, to a much more sophisticated extent, SEO, all these types of digital marketing platforms and media buys are very sophisticated. They're really multidimensional and really require not only a strategy, but they really should have people who are trained in how to buy that media, because things like targeting is expansive, and you really waste a lot of media dollars by placing inappropriate media. And I've seen that happen. So enough about that, but that is a huge part about what you're trying to do in digital marketing. The other part, and what's really the topic for what we want to talk about today, is the content creation, right? So in the past decade or so, there's been a lot of content that's pictures of jewelry on a white background, stock photography, some basic stuff here and there, but it's starting to get more sophisticated. And I think really when you start talking about introducing other platforms after Facebook, Instagram, for example, it's a different platform. It operates differently. And so when we start talking about creating content for those channels, plus your website, there's really two ways to approach it. Either you have to hire someone to do it, or you can have people on staff that know how to do these types of things. And that's becoming more and more prevalent, especially as millennials have fully entrenched the workforce now. When you're hiring for someone in the store, it doesn't have to be a salesperson, but salespeople are obviously the most obvious front-facing people. But when you're talking about hiring that person, it may not be a topic of conversation in the interview to talk about other traits, other talents that they have, and it should be. If you're interviewing someone, really, today they should wear many hats, especially when it comes to the content that you need for marketing, right? So it's not uncommon now. Look at YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, right? Video, photos. A lot of the younger generation has pretty expansive experience in creating video, editing video, taking photos. You don't always have to hire a professional photographer for content, nor for a great video as well. This thing here really revolutionized everything from video and photography, and is making it much more accessible to the masses. And that's what that's what you see when you watch TikTok or look at Instagram and things. It's all generated usually from these phones, and so that gives you an opportunity as a jeweler too to better market your business. So I want to break it down into the salesperson and, typical tasks that they may do and how that translates into the digital world today. Obviously salespeople will clientele, the call down list when there's a sale going on and those types of things. So clienteling is something that is tried and true, right? But it's also potentially changing because of the type of digital apps out there and other types of digital services that make it easier to do certain tasks, right? So one of them, I'm just using this as an example, but when you start talking about hiring people with a technical capability experience is important because it can give you that extra boost to the ways that you communicate to your customers, the way you market your business, and the type of content you produce. So, for example, what I want to talk about is an app called Bonjoro. Now, if you want to learn more about it, it's just Bonjoro, BONJORO.com. And you can find out more about it. But basically what it is, it's an app that lives on your phone. So if someone is emailing to set up an appointment from your website, or they call to make an appointment, or they're a current customer, whatever it may be, if you need to communicate with them, you can communicate a couple different ways. Sometimes you call them, other times you may shoot them off an email. With Bonjoro, you can actually give them a video call so they can see your face, and you can have a conversation with them through email. So, for example, the way it works is you open up the Bonjoro app on your phone, you shoot a video of you talking, they can see your face, you could show product, whatever it may be, if they're coming in for an appointment, whatever the case may be. And then you can send it, and it's shot off through email. The customer opens it up, they can look at it through email, and they can watch a video, and it's a much more personal communication than traditional email, right? So it's a small thing, but all these kind of small things they add up, and they really set you apart in terms of how you interact with your customer base. Just using that as an example, there's a lot of different tech out there that are important, and so thus, when you're hiring people, having people that are tech savvy are important because they may communicate differently. They may communicate in a way that other people prefer to communicate, specifically bridal age audience, right? Younger people know how they prefer to communicate. They have the technical experience to communicate with them that way. So that's one area, is that kind of communication that brings. The other types of things that you want to look for when you're bringing on new salespeople or any new staff for that matter are things that are the intangibles, right? So it's, especially again, for that millennial group, it's not uncommon for them to have been trained in college with experience in things like photography, things like coding, on a variety of different levels, especially if they have any kind of background in creative arts and that kind of thing. So those are valuable assets. And so you want to make sure that you ask about those types of things. What do they do for free time? What experience do they have with digital media creation, right? So I want to touch on a couple of those because I think this is where it really separates the pack, right? So let's talk about social media first. That's pretty obvious. We are way past the days of jewelry on white backgrounds, right? You still see it, but in reality, it's not that interesting. So we start talking about social media. Now everybody's doing social media. So if you're not on social media, you're not even in the game, right? So, but since everybody's in social media, you really have to start to set yourself apart. And the question is, how do you do that? And it comes from the content that you produce, right? And again, when you're talking about content, what type of content you're producing really should be related to the medium that you're using. Now, we talk about Facebook a lot because Facebook, regardless of what you may read, is still the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and they still demand quite a bit of eyeballs in the course of a day. And so Facebook is still, and we look at it as sort of a catch-all. You can put all kinds of content on Facebook that's consumable, right? Video, photography, lifestyle shots, all that kind of stuff can go on Facebook, and you can market that way. And it's important to do that, right? And you see a lot of different content on Facebook. But then as you start to move into other platforms, and I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole with things like with other types of platforms that probably aren't as prevalent now in the jewelry industry, and probably shouldn't be, but there are some that aren't, and Instagram's one of them. So if we're talking about Instagram, if you are a business and you want to get on Instagram, you really have to look at what Instagram is as a platform. And when you look at what Instagram as a platform, if you look at the people that use Instagram and how they use it, it's sort of like a portfolio of their best life experiences, right? You can see you see where they're traveling. They've got these great, beautiful photos. You see a lot of people modeling clothing, all these kinds of things. So that's what a lot of people are using Instagram for. It's like logging in life's best experiences, whereas Facebook is, griping at the standstill on the highway, So people post different content, generally speaking. And so if you're a business and you want to use that platform to connect to consumers, you want to create content that makes sense for that consumer. So this is where your staff comes in. So and we speak to our clients about this quite a bit, and it's sort of a role that we call the content curator. And what the content curator is it's a person on staff in your store that's responsible for gathering particular types of content. Now, it's a given that they'll probably generate a majority of that, but it doesn't have to be limited to them, right? So it can be other people in the store as well. And I'll give you an example about curating content, right? So one of the things on Instagram is to be able to bring in your community, right? People like to shop local. They want to shop local, and being able to bring your community into your social media feeds is important. One of the ways you can do that, and I'm just using this as an example, but one of the ways that you can do that is to bring in other businesses, locations, flavor from your wherever you're located, if there's something you're known for, etc. But one of the ways to do that, and I'm just using it as an example, is if that someone in the store is going to dinner, and say it's a favorite restaurant in the community, everybody loves it. Everybody wants to go there. It's great food, great people, all that kind of stuff. You want to be able to parlay that feeling into your business as well. One easy way to do that is that if someone's going and maybe they bring a ring with them from the store, and while you're waiting on your food to come out, you have you take some pictures, right? You've got you're holding onto the stem of the wine glass. You see this beautiful ring, and in the background you can make out the menu of the restaurant, right? It's very subtle, but when your feed is full of that type of community-based content, people can relate to you more, and it's more interesting for them to look at when they're looking at your Instagram feed. I mean, that's right. It's like you want people to look at you expect people to go to your Instagram page and look at your photos, right? So you have to make them interesting. That's why people look at that, or else what are you doing, right? So there's that, and there's also local lifestyle. Maybe there's an event going on locally where you can have some of the people there model jewelry at the event, just very lifestyle, everyday kind of photos that really bring that sense of to be able to approach you as a jeweler, that gives you a personality. All that stuff can be done in the type of content you take. That's something that is difficult, even for an agency. They can do they can execute, right? And they can do a lot of creative, they can do all kinds of things. But when you really drill down to content, to be able to get that real personable flavor, you got to look at what you can create on your own. Because even if you're working with an agency that is local, I mean, the expectation of them going out to these events or going out to these restaurants to take these photos, then you're gonna have to pay them to do that. It's a lot of money, right? So, and you don't need that. Like I said, this thing changes everything in terms of content creation. And again, it doesn't need to just be the person with the role of the content creator. It can be anybody, and should be anybody in the store that has that ability. So taking that type of social media content is super important. The next one that I want to talk about is just photography in general. And I'm not talking just about social media photography, but they may have more marketable skills in photography, right? So they have the ability to not only properly stage photos. So for example, And you may need to take some photos on white backgrounds where you upload, for your website, right? And the lighting comes into play there. So having someone that has the ability to do that in-house is immensely valuable. Now, especially now where e-commerce is super heightened because of COVID and what's going on. And we'll get to that in a sec. But being able to have photography skills. And and that also translates into being able to edit and crop and better prep files for usage. I'll give you an example of editing, right? So for example, you may commonly want to put images on your website. So maybe on your About Us page, you want to put a picture of the store outside. And if you don't have, and I've seen this, if you don't have the knowledge base on sizing of images, you may put an image on there that's way too large for that space. So what happens? What slows your website down? So slows page speed down and that kind of thing. So I actually have seen where people have like 15 meg, 5 meg, 15 meg images on a page. I don't see that often, but when you do, it's like, wow, this thing's 6,000 pixels wide. And if you don't know what pixels are, and if you don't know sort of the photography lingo, you may put it up there because it's sent to you. Someone sends you an image. You take an image, even with your phone, that may be super high res, and that's not necessarily needed on the website. So photography experience is extremely valuable too, in terms of being able to prep photography for a variety of different reasons. So these are things that are important to know, and that also comes down into the website. Website management kind of is broken down into two things too. There's maintenance and maintaining it, which again, professionals really should be involved in. They got to back up the site, update plugins potentially, fix issues, deal with technical things, right? But then there are the easy things that can be done on a website, like flipping out a banner, changing some copy on a page. These things are easy to do if you know how to do it. So having someone on staff who has an experience editing your particular content management system for your website would be important too. So if you're using WordPress, I'm just using that as an example, as your content management system for your website, and someone that you're interviewing for a sales position or any other position has experience with WordPress, well, there's value there. Because if you don't have that person and you have to rely on a third party to flip out that banner or update that copy, well, then you gotta send them an email, have them do it, and I've commonly heard things like, I asked them to do that 2 weeks ago, or it took them 4 days to change the copy, and more than likely you're wanting it changed quicker than that, and I get it, but they have tickets they have to fill and et cetera. Whereas if you've got someone on staff that can make those easy edits, there's a lot of value in that, because you can ask someone on staff, hey, can you flip out this image real quick for whatever reason? They say, yeah, they do it, and it's done in 5 minutes.
That was easy.
And you're done, right? So so there's value there. Again, their main position might be a salesperson or another position in the store, but they have these other intangibles that allow you to do things quicker, to do a content creation that's much more curated towards your business, and a variety of different other types of things that make what you're doing from the digital marketing execution side much more effective. And so that's super important as well. So when you're talking about hiring for 2021, when you're looking at these people that are coming in, you're interviewing them, don't forget to ask them about these intangibles. Don't forget to ask them about the things that they do that they're passionate about. What do they do in their free time? Do they have experience with digital media, creative media, video, all these kinds of things? Because if they have that experience, it leads to a whole slew of other types of digital marketing that needs to be created in store, right? So, and I don't want to get too far down, but for example, creating content for YouTube. There's a lot of value in creating informative video for YouTube. Of course, you can use it on your website, you can use it on social media, but building out your YouTube channel, not a lot of retailers are building out their YouTube channel. Why? Because it's a bigger barrier to entry, because you have to shoot and edit video, right? And so, the idea of hiring someone to shoot the video, to edit the video, is costly, and it doesn't make it very advantageous to produce 20, 30, 40 different pieces of content that you can use and market on your YouTube channel. So having someone internally that can do that is very effective. And again, you can shoot with the right lighting. You can shoot on your phone with some basic equipment. You could shoot great video for YouTube or your social channels. So again, that's another important aspect of the talents and traits that people bring to them other than their core responsibilities inside the store. So hope this is informative for you in terms of seeking out your new salesperson. Stay tuned. Please subscribe. We'll be having a lot of different podcasts coming up in the upcoming months in 2021. Thanks for joining us.